This is the Aftermarket Radio Network.
Welcome to another episode of Business by the Numbers. I'm your host, Hunt Emrys, CPA with Parmelis and Associates. Do you pay yourself rent? Do you think raising your rent is going to help you save money on taxes? Do you know how this affects the value of your business, the value of your real estate? Do you not even know what I'm talking about? That's exactly what we're going to talk about this week. Fair rental amounts, how do you calculate that? Should you increase your rent? Should you pay for that between your rental LLC or your shop and everything else in between? Before we get into that, I just want to stop and say thank you to you and the rest of the dedicated listeners. Remember, if you have a question, want to hear a topic discussed on here, or want to be a guest in a future episode, shoot me an email at podcast@parmelis.com. Lastly, we cannot forget about our dedicated sponsors, NAPA and Promotive, for being such loyal supporters of the show. If you want to give them a shout, need a new shop management software, give Trax a call. And if you want to hire the next rock star for your team, give Promotive a shout. Hey, did you know NAPA Trax is on-site training plus 6 days a week support? It all starts when a local representative meets with you to learn about your business and how you run it. After all, it's your shop, so it's your choice. Let us prove to you that Trax is the single best shop management system in the business. Visit them online at napatrax.com. That's NAPATRACS.com. If you're looking for a full-service staffing solution that does everything from sourcing, qualifying, creating job descriptions, scheduling interviews, to negotiating job offers, Promotive is your answer. Visit them online at gopromotive.com. What we're going to talk about this week is essentially what I'm calling the Handbook on Self-Rentals. Why we do it, what you need to do in order to do this, and then some of the how, some of the why again at the end there. To start off with the original why are we talking about this, Hunt? What are you even talking about here? If you go out and you run a shop and you rent from a landlord, you don't need to worry about any of this stuff because it's an arm's length transaction. They're going to charge you a fair market value. They're going to collect and pay what they think is reasonable. And the open market decides a lot of this stuff. Should you have a lease? He's probably going to give you one, or she's probably going to give you one. The thing that adds an added level of complexity is when you're dealing with yourself, self-dealing. It's something that the IRS talks about, and it's something that gets brought up a lot. Why? Because if you have a transaction, I'm going to buy this car, I'm going to sell this car, I'm going to buy this real estate, I'm going to sell this real estate, or down to renting this stuff. If you're doing it with someone else, it's going to be a fair market. You're not going to do something that is one-sided, because why would the person ever say yes? However, when you're dealing with yourself, you could say, depending on what the outcome is, I could argue the rent should be high. I could argue that the rent should be low. I could argue that my rental LLC should pay for this repair, or I could argue that my shop. And really, a lot of that is going to come down to the reason why we do some of this stuff. Some of this is you could make an argument that the landlord or the lessee should pay for this repair or pay for this insurance. So some of this stuff comes down to we have some flexibility now that we're self-rental, so let's use that to our advantage. The whole idea here is we have legal protection because we want to split up these two, and we got to figure out what makes sense. Before we get too far on it, I have to mention legal protection. If you don't know why we need to have the legal protection of this, we've done episodes on this in the past, but I'm going to give you the down and dirty, simple 30-second explanation of this. If you own your real estate personally right now, this is a wake-up call to stop listening to this episode and go transfer that into an LLC name. Like we talked about in previous episodes, there's a little bit more to this, but the general idea is this. If you are renting from yourself and someone slips and falls in your parking lot, they're suing you. They're suing your family. They're suing you personally. You own that. However, if you transfer it into an LLC solely owned by you and your spouse, they can sue you and they can sue your LLC. And yeah, if they win, they can take that real estate. They can't take your cars. They can't take your primary home. They can't take your personal accounts. So the whole idea here that we're doing this is legal protection. If we have the idea on here that we are doing this for legal protection, a lot of what we're talking about here is making sure that you're doing this in a manner that doesn't jeopardize that legal protection. We'll talk about here in a second. We got to have a lease set up. Why? Because we need to make sure that everything is done by the book. If you go to a landlord, they're going to have a lease set up for you, so do you. You might be saying to yourself, Hon, I don't want to do all of this stuff when we get to this. Remember, the whole reason that you did this and separated these two is for legal protection. You don't want to do something in your day-to-day or your compliance side of things on a yearly basis that's going to jeopardize the legal protection. It's the whole idea that we ultimately do this. Another thing on this is you're not going to save any money here on taxes. So I'm going to stop you right now. Is separating this stuff up, paying yourself a higher or lower amount in rent is really not going to save you any money on taxes. We're going to talk about this in a little bit, that there is some obscure things that taxes do come in, but more or less, if you pay yourself more rent, you're lowering the business income, you're increasing your rental income. It's just a seesaw. We're not losing any tax liability. We're shifting it from this one to that one. But if you remember, your LLC, your business, none of them pay tax. You do personally. So whether we have 100 of profit and 60 of profit flowing in, or we have 60 of profit, 100 of profit flowing in, personally for you, you're still going to have $160,000 of net income. Doesn't matter which pocket it's coming into. Remember, if you're not doing this for legal protection, you're not doing this for anything because it doesn't save us money on taxes. The last why that we do this, and this is a very specific why, but this is the why on why you care about how much money you're paying a month, making sure that you're paying fair market value, is this does come into effect your estate tax planning. We'll talk about this kind of at the end when we get into the how or how much do we figure out. The biggest thing here, though, is if you don't do this stuff correctly, if you don't build a business that can support fair market value rent, you could actually be devaluing your business for when you decide to ultimately sell that and retire. Now that we got the why, the whole point of the why was to hopefully hook you guys. It is like, all right, this is why we need to worry about this. This is why this stuff is important. And yeah, you might not be affected by this now, but maybe down the road, if you were to get sued or you're probably going to retire at this some point, this stuff is going to come back and it's going to affect you. What do you need? If we're looking at this and we're looking at this as like a project, what supplies do you need in order to complete this project? First and foremost, this stuff has to be in a separate LLC. If you were listening to this before and you'd already stopped this episode where I said, because if this is not in a separate LLC, if you own this personally, most of this stuff doesn't really make much sense anymore. If you're going to have this in a separate LLC, then obviously you're going to need to have a separate LLC set up. Here's where the optional stuff comes in. Hunt, do I need a bank account set up for my LLC? And this is a big one, and I will come down to this, and let's just answer this right now. You do not need to do any of this stuff. I think you should do all of it, and I'll just leave that at that. This is going to be the same thing when we talk about leases. It's going to be the same thing when we talk about actually transferring or pay these checks on it. But to simplify all this is, what do you think a landlord would do if they were doing this? If someone went out and they set up an LLC to rent to a shop, do you think that they would deposit the rental payments in their personal account, or would they deposit those into a business bank account? They're going to deposit this stuff into a business bank account. Is this going to affect you on taxes if you deposit in a personal account versus a business bank account? No. If you were to get sued by a lawyer, do you think it's going to look better to produce your records where all of the income and expenses are all neatly categorized in an LLC bank account solely used for that LLC, or mixed in with your operating business or your personal, that you are at the same time trying to argue in this lawsuit that has nothing to do with your real estate? It's going to look better. Set up the bank account. It's cheap. It's easy to do. You need a lease set up. I would advise you, if you're going to get the LLC set up, to have a lawyer do the lease at the same time. Remember, we're doing this for legal protection. Now, on the lease side of it, if you already have your LLC set up, you already have a bank account set up, and you're saying, Hunt, I don't officially have a lease set up, I'd probably just do it online. What you are looking for is what's called a triple net commercial lease. So if you Google triple net commercial lease for, enter state name, it'll create you one. Little quick tip here. Lawyers that I know of that listen to this, don't shoot me nasty messages. But if I need a quick legal document set up that I know will not have any legal bearing because it's just generally to myself, I'll use Rocket Lawyer. Again, lawyers don't kill me. It's really cheap. You can get a 7-day free trial on it, and you can absolutely do a commercial triple net lease because I've done them before on there. What does triple net lease mean, though? Let's talk about the lease. Why do you get a lease set up? Because if you were renting from someone else, they would have a lease set up. Again, you make sure this is all legal. Make sure this looks arm's length. Now, the reason why we're going to do a triple net lease is 2 reasons. One is that's what's most commonly done. If you're renting from someone else, you are probably getting a triple net lease, meaning that you're responsible for taxes, insurance, and upkeep. So if you're going to do that with your shop, you're going to do the same thing. It's just common practice. The other reason, and this goes back to what we were talking about before, Some of this stuff doesn't matter, whether it's a triple net lease or not. Why do we want it to be a triple net lease? This is one of the aspects that it does matter for taxes. Generally, the operating business, the shop, has more of a profit. We want to saddle the taxes, insurance, and repairs and upkeep on the shop to hopefully bring that income down. Like we mentioned before, at the end of the year, all of this money is flowing through to you personally. So whether it's coming from here or coming from there, it doesn't matter. The big difference is we could have a loss in the shop after paying all of our triple net expenses, and generally we can deduct those. If you lose money on a real estate entity, you generally cannot deduct that. So if we lost 25 grand in the shop and we made 25 grand on the real estate, those wash out, we pay zero tax. If we lose 25 grand on the real estate and we have 25,000 of profit on the shop, there's a good chance we're paying tax on the 25,000 of profit, and the losses on the real estate are not deducted and we get pushed forward to future years. If you wanted the long and short on it, on why you do a triple net lease, you just got it. If you don't care, set up a triple net commercial lease made for, enter your state name here. Most all of this stuff legally is done state by state. I have to put the caveat out there that some of this stuff, depending on where you are, if you're in a Commonwealth, is done by different municipalities. But yeah, generally state by state, you are good to go here. Let's face it, your shop management system is the single most important tool in your shop, period. You need NAPA Tracks because it integrates with all the major players, including NAPA ProLink, Parts Tech, OE Repair Link, Epicor, Tire Connect, Mitchell 1 Pro Demand, and more. NAPA Tracks has leading-edge tools and technology that your shop needs right now. Unlike the other guys, we'll be there after your installation with the best training and support in the business. Your training includes a learning management system that is tailored to each role in your company. Simply put, Trax was designed and built for shop owners just like you. It all starts when a local representative meets with you to learn about your business to help optimize your shop's workflow, efficiency, and profitability. For over 30 years, NAPA Trax has made selecting the right shop management system easy by offering the best, most comprehensive SMS in the industry. After all, it's your shop, so it's your choice. Visit us on the web at napatrax.com. That's napatracs.com. Shop owners, are you struggling to find and retain top-tier talent for your automotive shop? Introducing Promotive, on the web at gopromotive.com. With over 40 years of combined industry and recruiting experience, we're the ultimate staffing solution. We go beyond traditional agencies. Our team provides dedicated recruiters and account managers advising on processes, compensation, and benefits. We focus on placing technicians and service advisors with shops that offer the best culture, training, and long-term growth opportunities. Trust our experience to match the right talent to your shop. We carefully select shops that value employee excellence and provide an environment for success. Our dedicated team leads the entire process, leveraging our industry knowledge and expertise. Partner with Promotive and experience their advantage to help you build a high-performing team that drives your shop's growth. Visit gopromotive.com today and let us help find and keep the best talent in the industry. You got the what set up. You got this set up for legal protection. You got the bank account set up. You got the lease set up. You are ready to go. Now, how do we do this? I mentioned this before. How do we do this is almost just as important as what we're doing or why we're doing it. The first one is, how do we pay ourselves? How would you pay a landlord? Any question that I'm not going to answer, any question that I'm thinking of, I'm going to phrase it back to you, and that's how I want you to think about this going forward. Stop making this confusing and being like, now that I'm my own landlord, I have all these choices. No, you don't. Take those choices out of your kind of equation. If you bought your building from your old landlord and used to send him a check, then send yourself a check. If you bought it from your old landlord and used to wire the money, then wire it to yourself. Keep things simple, because if anyone came and looked at it, this is not arm's length. Sure it is. This is how I used to do it with an unrelated party. More or less though, I need to see that money going back and forth. In a perfect situation, it's either a direct wire that's automated or a check that goes out. In the simplest format of this, the way that I see this working is I have an automated transfer from my business the first of the month of 12 grand to my rental company. And then on the second of the month, I have an automated bill payment coming out of my rental company for my mortgage payment of $10,000. That is a super easy, repeatable process that doesn't even need to be repeated because now it's all automated. I figured out how much in rent I need to pay. That's going to automatically come out. I got the lease done up, transfer from my business bank account to my rent to LLC bank account. That's automatically going to pay the mortgage. I'm in compliance. It's on autopilot. It's good to go. That is what I want this to ultimately look like for you guys. We've talked about what you need to set up. We've talked about how you guys need to organize this. The only thing that we haven't talked about is how much you should pay yourself. This is a tricky one. And generally, if you're looking at this stuff, the overall thing is the higher the better. Again, like there is some ambiguity to this. I'm not sure if that's the way to say that word, but there it is. And you could look at yourself and say, Hunt, there's an argument I could pay myself $6,000. There's an argument I could pay myself $8,000. When in doubt, what would you do? For every state out there, pretty much besides Florida, when in doubt, use the higher amount. That rhymes, I guess, doesn't it? When in doubt, use the higher amount. The idea behind that is there's generally not a whole lot of situations where that could hurt you by having the amount too high. The only thing that I will put out there is Florida. We're not going to do that. Florida is a unique one where Florida, you actually pay sales tax on your rent. If you pay yourself a higher amount in rent, you're just ended up paying more money to the state. Florida, when we're talking about this, we're trying to have this as trim and as low as possible that we can legally argue. That way we don't have to give the state more money. I know they lowered the state in Florida. We don't have to give them the full sales tax rate. But yeah, it's the only state that does that I'm aware of. Might be a local municipality that applies a rental tax and stuff. But from a state level, you guys got it lucky that you guys don't have state income tax. But yeah, for some of my clients that pay themselves a very fair rent, that can get pretty expensive. For the rest of you guys out there, how do you figure out how much rent you should be paying yourself? If you want to do it official, it is an easy one. Go ask a real estate agent. They can go out and they can do a fair market value analysis and they can give you an exact figure of what you should be charging yourself for rent. Now, for everyone else that doesn't have the official answer, doesn't feel like paying a real estate agent, I'm going to give you two choices. If you just got your building, meaning you got it now, you got it within the last 3 to 4 years, your mortgage payment is probably pretty darn close to fair market value. You just bought it. You're probably not going to be able to argue or afford paying yourself much more than what your mortgage payment is. So if you're sitting yourself saying, Hun, I bought my building in 2022, arguably the value is similar on it, or my mortgage is $5,200 a month right now, I'm going to pay myself $6,000 a month. It's higher than a mortgage payment. It's going to cover the mortgage payment. It's going to put a little bit of money aside over there for rainy days, for savings, for taxes, for profit, whatever. So if you just got it, just do a mortgage payment plus and whatever you want it to be. Some of my clients also use that to get creative for like a for spending or for savings account. Like let's say you want to redo all of your lifts next year. It's going to cost you $25,000. What some of my clients do is they say, I'm going to take an extra $2,000 a month and pay myself in rent. Over the course of 12 months, that's going to save me $24,000 and I can use that to buy these lifts. That's a cool idea. I see people use it a lot. You might be saying to yourself, Hunt, I bought this. I don't even remember when. It's been so long and I don't even have a mortgage to compare this on. What would you do? Again, you could go back to a real estate agent. You could ask them and you still might need to do this to get a value, but you can also back into the rent amount based on what the value of the property is. You can do this from one of two ways. Let's say that you are currently paying yourself around $80,000 a year in rent and you want to do a sanity check. Hunt, does that sound right? If you're paying yourself around $80,000 a year in rent, and cap rates are different everywhere, but generally that would mean that your building is worth around $800,000 or the real estate itself is worth around $800,000. I'm using a 10% cap rate there. So if you're paying yourself $80,000 a year and you think to yourself, my building's probably worth $750,000, $825,000, yeah, you're right in the ballpark. If you're thinking to yourself, no, Hunt, my building's worth $1.6 million, then your rent's probably about half of what it should be. Now, the same flip side, maybe you know what your building is worth. You don't know what it should be rented for. Hunt, I know my building is worth around $1.2 million. If your building is worth around $1.2 million, you should be paying yourself around $10,000 a month or $120,000 a year. Again, your cap rate where you are might be 7%. Your cap rate where you are might be 12%. Using that 10% is going to be a very good rule of thumb, get you pretty close. And like I said, if anything, and you're not in Florida, go on the higher side. If you're looking at yourself and, man, it should be, $8,000 to $9,000 a month on rent, do $9,000. It's generally never going to hurt. And the same flip side of that. If you're looking at something that's $8,000 a month and it really should be $9,000, that is really not going to change much at all. Again, the whole idea of this episode at first was to get you interested on it, to wrap all this stuff up, I'll leave you with a little bit of a cautionary tale of someone that recently got burned by this. Was taking a look, was doing a valuation for a company. On average, he was making around $200,000 to $300,000 of profit a year. Some of you guys heard this story, so I'm going to very simplify this. And so if you've listened to it before, if someone's making $200,000-$300,000 in profit, a 3-time multiple, that business is probably worth about $1 million. And I would say if these numbers were true, that business was worth about $1 million. Long story short, we end up looking down through, we look at the valuation. He's paying himself about $100,000 a month or $100,000 a year in rent, which is a good bit of money, but I knew where he was. We sat down and we said, I need you to go find out what this building is worth and what rent is, because you bought this in 1742, so I know what you're paying is not fair. We get around and around on it. This building is worth, or this real estate's worth every bit of $4 to $5 million. And so what we work out is that he's probably underpaying himself by about $300,000 a year, which is what it is. But going forward, he's not selling the real estate, so the people wouldn't be paying him $100,000 a year, but more like $400,000 to $500,000. The good news for my client is that his real estate is enough to make him independently wealthy. He doesn't know anything on that real estate. He's going to be able to sell that and ride off into the sunset. The downside of it is he just got a wake-up call that the business as it's currently set up is probably worthless, because how is he going to sell that business to someone else when they're looking at the numbers and they know day one that I come in here, this business cannot afford what it's going to be paying in rent. Even though this is all going to the same spot, even though this person won because the real estate was worth more, the business is worth less. Is he have anything to do about this? Yeah, to a certain extent. He doesn't need to sell this now. But imagine if he did this exercise when he was 45 and not when he was 65. What he could have been able to change, do differently, forecast, grow. Hopefully you're getting this at 45, not 65. Even better, you're hearing this at 35. But take a look at this stuff, do your research, make sure that you are doing this stuff and you're protecting yourself and not spending money where we shouldn't be. As always, please share with friends, fellow shop owners, or really anyone else that you know self-employed and renting from themselves. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future episodes, shoot me an email at podcast@parmelis.com. Just want to say thanks again for listening on the Aftermarket Radio Network. You can find all shows on the aftermarketradionetwork.com and on your favorite podcast listening apps. Thanks again for joining me on Business by the Numbers. Stay safe out there, and I will talk to you all next week.
You've been listening to Business by the Numbers with Hunt Demarest on the Aftermarket Radio Network. Follow Hunt on your favorite podcast listening app. Let him know what you'd like him to cover. His email is in the show notes. Hunt is all for advancing the aftermarket.